Just a bit of a delay, obviously. You must be snowed in heavily there this morning.
snowed in up in Kilbane, and that's what it is. Oh, and you know it is.
It's almost like Christmas out there, isn't it? It's like March and the snow's coming down. You're like, why didn't we get this 3 months ago when it was actually Christmas time? Although
I know I'm trying to plan my route back into the UK for this weekend actually, because I'm due at Burnley tomorrow morning and I'm due at Man City on Sunday. So I'm trying to get back in over the weekend. So it's just a bit manic at the moment, trying to get flights look like they're going to be cancelled. So I'm trying to get maybe the ferry for later on today.
Yeah, it's a nightmare, but I guess we should all get into the festive spirit again. Why not? Why not put on a Christmas jumper once again? Although maybe, Kev, the last time you put on a Christmas jumper, things didn't turn out too well.
Is that right? Yeah, you've got a good memory, Owen. That's what it is. Yeah, I think we'll leave that one go.
Yes, I don't know where I'm getting that from. Actually, I think that's a lot of nonsense. Actually, on my part, I think things are completely fine. So we're going to chat a little bit about Arsenal. We're going to chat a little bit about Manchester City. We're also going to touch on this idea of pundits and managers, because I'm not sure if you've seen this week the current Barcelona chairman Laporta talking about Thierry Henry potentially being linked to the Arsenal managerial job because he gave a chance to Pep. And it seems to me, Kev, comparing Thierry Henry and Pep Guardiola isn't exactly a like-for-like comparison.
It's hardly a like-for-like comparison. You look at Thierry Henry's had absolutely no credible job at the moment, has he? Or no, certainly coaching job. He's worked with the Belgian squad for a short while. He was in Arsenal's academy for a very, very short while as well before he left. I think he was working with the under-14s, I think, at one stage. So, yeah, most definitely. You can't even compare them. It's like chalk and cheese at the moment.
Sorry, Kevin, just on that. You're saying Thierry Henry doesn't have a credible job. So
no, I'm talking from an actual coaching a team, and I would always say as well, it's something that I would always stress when we spoke about people looking to take jobs and step up the ladder. You have to take your own individual side. Now, whatever level that is, you need to take a team for a year at the very least before you can actually start to, and I'm talking about under 15s, under 16s, 17s, 18s, whatever that would be. You need to actually coach that 1 to 11, that 1 to 18. You need to take a side. Now, he's got an assistant coaching job. What he does within the realms of that coaching job, I'm not too sure, but I doubt very much that with Roberto Martinez on the Belgian side, I doubt very much he's out on the coaching field taking the 1 to 11 on a regular basis. I'd say if ever, I think he'd probably doing individual work with players, probably working on striking roles and things like that, and that's part of his development. But he's probably, from an Arsenal job, he's probably 8-10 years away from an Arsenal job at the moment, I would suggest. Because simply, he's not necessarily taking a side. He hasn't taken a team yet. So as soon as he starts taking a side, that's when you can start to put him in the bracket of maybe an Arsenal job.
I probably agree with you there on the Belgium thing for sure, that it doesn't provide the necessary experience to manage a club, because first of all, it's a completely different level, and second of all, it's a different position. He's in an assistant role, obviously, in Belgium, but in that assistant role, I wonder, does that say something about Thierry Henry's willingness to learn, that he's got no ego, that he was willing to accept the assistant managerial role, and he does have this yearning to actually kind of develop himself as a coach, or am I reading just too much into that?
Well, no, you forget he's the assistant of the assistant. Graham Jones is Roberto Martinez's assistant, so he's got an assistant role within the coaching setup. So he's there basically, as you said, maybe to learn. Yeah, credit him. It's a great role for him that he can actually learn. He can listen to what Martinez and what Jones, because they've both got great experience. He can listen to what they're saying, but he's way off it at the moment. That's what I definitely would say.
It's sort of come down, I think, to, as you touched it there, we're judging him on his punditry, where actually, as Kevin says, it's his lack of experience that should rule him out of even being in the conversation for the Arsenal job. Whereas I think a lot of the initial reaction is, well, he's terrible in Sky. What could he offer? What sort of insight could he offer? We're actually, is there any direct correlation between being a good pundit and being a good manager?
Well, Gary Neville disproves that, didn't he?
Well, exactly. So,
yeah, I think, do you know what I would say as well? I think it's quite harsh even that we judge Gary Neville as a manager. We're judging him on the top of the job that he took at Valencia. It was far too soon for him. I go back to the point, it'd be the same for Thierry Henry or anyone stepping into that type of job straight away. You need to have a team. You've got to have, and again, go back to stress the point. I think you look at Steven Gerrard now, what he's doing. He's taking a side. He's taking the 18 side. He's actually now coaching a team as an 11, as I said, as a squad on the training ground day in, day out. you can't then step. Steven Gerrard would probably know himself to say, I could never step into the Liverpool job to shit. I need 2, 3, 4, 5 years experience, whatever it's got to be, before I can take that job. And he needs good people around him as well to do that. That's why Gary Neville probably took it, but he did. It was maybe the self-belief, yes, of course, maybe slight arrogance as well, to suggest that I could go in and take that job and do it as someone like Pep Guardiola or someone who else, the names that you've mentioned there, could do. He's simply too far behind, and that's why now he's now tarnished. And he could still do it, Gary Neville, without a doubt, but he would certainly need 3 or 4 years' experience of coaching teams at underage level.
And there's no great glory in that. There's no great glory in what Steven Gerrard is doing, which is actually getting up at 7 o'clock every morning and going in and setting up a session for under-18s. And when we're talking about Thierry Henry as potentially a next Arsenal manager, surely the guy we should probably be looking at, if it's a former player, is somebody like Robert Pires, who actually is involved in the coaching setup, who's there day to day getting involved. It's sort of like the conversation we have with Ireland at time to time when, who should come in and take over the underage setup and who should have this vision for Irish football. And we often talk in terms of the big names, whereas like Lee Carsley is the person who we should be talking about, who's going about his business quietly, working in the academies, learning. But because he's not on TV every week telling anybody about this, it sort of gets forgotten about.
Yeah, for sure. And I think as well, when you think about that, like, suppose, say if Carsley got a senior managerial role now, and when it comes to Neville as well, and there is an element of having to be thrown into the deep end in that first role. You can build yourself up with an experience, but you do have to get that first role in that respect. So there is a huge chance of failure in your first managerial role. And I know we've spoken about it on the show before, but it's worth reiterating, Kev, that a failure can sometimes strengthen a CV.
Yeah, without a doubt, that's true. I mean, I know Lee extremely well. Lee and I would be very close. Lee's turned down several first-team managerial roles because he believes that his path is about trying to learn from the grassroots up or underage level up. He's had many jobs now within youth football, youth structure at Coventry, at Brentford. He's taken first-team roles, first-team duties at Coventry, Brentford and Birmingham as well. And now, of course, he's involved with the England under-21s. But he feels as though that he needs years ahead of him at learning the ropes, so to speak. So that's where he is right now. But, I mean, you could be right in saying now, sometimes as well, if you take a job early and you have that failure, I remember going back to Gary Neville, it was such a high-profile job for him to take on. He did fail, but I would suggest that even if he stepped back into a managerial role further down the line, he'd probably learn more from that failure, what happened there at Valencia, because you know full well how to deal with certain people within a club structure. It's not necessarily now about the team on the pitch. And you hear that this saying said so often now. It is about managing up. It's about managing the boardroom as much as it's about managing the team on the field and expectations.
Definitely. What's the most transferable skill from punditry to coaching? What's the biggest thing, say, a Thierry Henry could take from his time in Sky into a top-level managerial role, if anything? You know what? It is a great question from that. You know what? It's something. I mean, I was coaching at under 23 level. I can only maybe use my limited experience in coaching. I had the whole reserve side for a season, or certainly 3/4 of a season. And what I could take from punditry, certainly watching players, certainly getting a knowledge of how teams work and systems and that. But I think the intricacies of day-to-day football, Nathan's touched on something there which is spot on. Getting up at 7 o'clock every single morning, setting up sessions. You're on your own, essentially. That's how you do it. And you've got a lot of travelling to do. You've got to go and watch a lot of games. And I think the only thing that punditry can help you with is actually watching the players themselves. But other than that, I think there's very little that can actually prepare you for what it's like for actually a coaching and a managerial role. What
was the Kevin Kilbane philosophy for the Hull under-23 side?
It's not philosophy, Nathan. I don't use those terms. It was certainly enjoyment. That was my philosophy. Enjoy day to day. Enjoy life, Nathan.
Did you go in with an envelope at any stage and 3 of you guys are going to let me down? Your names are in here.
Well, you know that none of that crap's for me. You know that. So I was I'm genuinely what I did. I tried to make. I think certainly at that age, when they are, I had lads from 16. Usually probably till about 19, 20. That was my general age group between that 4 years. It was actually under 21s at the time. I say under 23. It was actually under 21s at the time when I had the job. So it was more about trying to educate them positionally, whichever position they were playing in. Try to talk to them one-on-ones, little bits of video analysis, because there was limited video analysis that a reserve team game would have had. So you're trying to then maybe take them as a group, take them for the 11 that would have started a certain game, try to help them out positional sense, then try to work with them on the training ground on how to develop them technically. That was basically what I was trying to do up there. I didn't get long enough in the role where I could have any sort of significant outcome further down the line. But I at the time where I was, the position I wanted, the place I was in my life, I would have loved to continue it. But then Nick Barmby gets sacked, and that just shows how precarious any role within a football club is. If a manager goes and you're part of his coaching setup or part of his coaching staff, the rest of the staff would leave with him. So I didn't really get the chance to continue it.
Oh, sliding doors and all that. Here you are now, talking to us from your kitchen on a Friday morning in Dublin. He's not happy with that at all.
that did not go down well.
That did not go down well at all. Do you think the... can you actually hear us? That's absolutely blank.
I didn't hear that joke.
Was
it your job? Yeah, I didn't hear it.
I didn't hear it. That's okay. Do you think actually the last few days have sort of reinforced why Arsenal stand by Arsene Wenger when you look at some of the names that are linked, and almost instantly the outcry and the outrage that Brendan Rodgers could even be on a shortlist for the Arsenal job?
Let's call a spade here. You're not talking about some of the names. You're talking about Brendan Rodgers.
I'm talking about Brendan Rodgers. But even then, without Brendan, they're obviously going to look. You can look at what happened with Alex Ferguson and Manchester United and the way they declined so quickly when nobody expected. Everyone thought at the very least David Moyes would be a safe pair of hands and keep getting them Champions League football at the very least. That didn't happen. It was a pretty rapid decline. And there's not that many managers out there who you think are a automatic fit. There's no way of knowing who is going to be an automatic fit, who's going to come in and is going to want the same players, that isn't going to go and want to spend 250 million quid during the summer. Like, the person I would like to see go in is maybe someone like Diego Simeone.
Yeah.
But again, Simeone's probably a 3-4 year plan of suddenly instilling a very different style, a more defensive style of football, which they really don't have the players for right now. So are you looking for an Arsene Wenger Mark II? And in that case, well, why not just stick with Arsene Wenger and save yourself a whole lot of money?
Yeah, well, Arsene Wenger Mark II is a very different person to Arsene Wenger Mark I, because Arsene Wenger Mark I has been created in the Petri dish of the 90s, where kind of those radical ideas are not so radical anymore.
They probably saved themselves have a lot of money anyway, because the wages that any manager went in would certainly be not on the level of Arsene Wenger as it would be. So whenever Wenger does decide to leave, you've probably got a manager on, I don't know, I wouldn't want to say half, but it certainly wouldn't be of the level that Wenger's at, because Wenger's wages are as high as anyone in world football.
Yeah. You obviously would have come up against Henry a few times anyway, Kev. Like, you've spoken about a certain former Arsenal player, not so fondly before, in Cesc Fabregas. Thierry Henry kind of strikes me as the type of person who wouldn't share those sort of traits of looking down on opposition team players.
He's teeing him up today, isn't he? Honestly. No, it was wonderful, wasn't he? I think we all accept that. As much the same as Fabregas. Fabregas was excellent footballer. So's Henry.
Henry was a different level to Fabregas, though, wasn't he? Because it's the one thing you hear from, especially defenders. Like when Kenny Cunningham's on, Henry is the one guy he always comes back to that was pretty much unmarkable when he was at his best.
Yeah. Well, it was. I always used to remember team meetings around Henry when you were talking about how to stop Arsenal and how to stop certain players, and you'd have Henry, and you'd be probably spending a majority of that meeting talking about Henry rather than the collective Arsenal 1 to 11. It was about Henry. How do you stop him? What plan have you got in place? Perhaps you were talking about a holding midfielder to try to, because Henry invariably would always, as you know yourself, like he would always try to creep over to the inside left channel, much the same position you would see an Eden Hazard pick the ball up now. And you would maybe have a defensive midfield player that you'd be talking to try to get close to Henry. So automatically you're telling that defensive midfield player to do a job and play in a position that he's uncomfortable with. So it kind of disrupted your whole game plan. And then also with the quality that he had throughout that side, that's when he started to flourish, because you would try to make exception for him. He genuinely was world class, wasn't he? I think we all know that. One of the best that I would have played against, without a doubt.
What about as a man? What's he like?
I don't really know him, Owen, and that's the truth. I really don't know him. I mean, Nathan's there with a big smile on his face, big happy head in him. But
talk about looking for a bit of gossip.
As
a man, Kevin, as a man.
I really don't know
about Thierry Henry.
Playing, I've told you before, playing against all those Arsenal players, I felt the demise of that club is of Arsenal over the last 15, 20 years, or whatever it is, 15 years. As I've always felt it's been in keeping with how those players, how they used to react to opposition on the pitch. I always felt that as a team, as a club, it was quite arrogant, and that's how I felt with Arsenal. I felt as though there was no discipline throughout that side, and it had gone from me growing up to looking at Arsenal as a football club with real high esteem and look at them and thinking this is the ultimate club. This is the class football club, and I never felt it when I played against them. I just felt as though that they were. If they ever lost games and you'd see them on the pitch, they were sore losers, but in a way that it would always turn into something more sinister and more nasty. Of course, we're all bad losers at times, but I just felt that's the way it went with Arsenal. I just felt as though that Arsenal had lost that touch of class over the years, and now we've got to the stage under Wenger now where we're criticising him, we're criticising his reign, and can we think back to Wenger 15 years ago to actually how he was? That decline has been in place for a number of years now. Even when I used to play against them in the early 2000s, a lot of the players like the Ray Parlers and the Petits, the Eras, and all these lads that you felt as though they were class players, but also class blokes. Arsenal have gone away from that now, and that's ultimately why they are, I feel, in the position they're in.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to move on. We're going to preview the weekend's matches and the games live and off the ball and news talk in a couple of moments. But we just want to get your thoughts really on a couple of snow moments this week. I wanted to get your take on this video from taken during the week from Peterborough United. Stephen Taylor clearing the snow here earlier on with a brush, taking it upon himself to get this game finished. They were 2-1 up at the time. And first thing I think right there, Kev, former Sunderland player, obviously Taylor, former Newcastle player, are the Northerners just that little bit tougher? Snow means nothing to them?
Yeah, that would have been a regular thing for us when we were kids, having to get snow off the pitch. That was our job when we were first coming into professional football, certainly into full-time football as a YT. If there was ever snow on the pitch on a match day when I was at Preston, we were the ones that were called in at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. We were out with the shovels trying to get everything off the pitch, trying to get the pitch prepared. So he's probably of that ilk, I suppose, as well, that he's maybe a little bit younger. He wouldn't necessarily have had to do that himself, but he certainly would have had some sort of responsibility when he was up there coming through the system at Newcastle, yeah.
Is he curling?
Looks like it.
Looks like he's practising his curling.
Yeah, he could do a job for Team GB.
I say, Nath, are we still on for Sunday? Is the game still on? When are we going to find this out?
Well, right now the games are on. You're at the Etihad, so again, I guess all the pitches will be fine. It's whether or not the conditions around the stadiums are okay. I'm assuming by Sunday the worst of it is going to be over. Well, all the indications are that the games are going to go on unless this terrible storm that's happening right now on this Friday morning is probably a little bit worse than everyone expects. But right now I'm intending to go to Brighton.
Good man. No, I'm just saying that just for the weekend. There's no indication in the Premier League as to when they'll make a decision on this one. They're just going to let it go at the moment to say maybe the morning of the match. Is that how it is? Yeah,
I'd imagine so, that it'll depend on every ground as to just how serious it is. You'd imagine some of the... I think pitch-wise there won't be any major issues, but it is just those surroundings, and maybe some of the clubs are a bit more proactive and get on top of this and it's a bit easier for them, whereas you'd wonder places up northeast, Newcastle, places like that, where it might be a little bit more difficult. But as I said, Brighton actually at the moment look like one of the worst situations. So yeah, I think we'll probably have to wait until Saturday morning, Sunday morning before we know.
Yeah, for sure. Kev, you're at Manchester City against Chelsea on Sunday. Just a quick one on Vincent Kompany, because it seems that the trendy take at the start of the season was to say that Vincent Kompany maybe was never a good defender, that he was good with, good midfielders in front of him and he couldn't play with the football at his feet.
Who said that, Owen?
But it was a trendy take, that's all I'm saying. And maybe I might have bought into it a little bit myself.
Who said it? I want to know who said that. If you're making statements like that, I'd like to know who said that.
Well, let's just say I would have. I said that, okay? I bought into that trendy take.
That's just utter nonsense. Whoever suggested that are talking absolute rubbish.
I believe the hype, but it's clearly not true. It's blatantly not true. And I would contend that there were, I would say that there were actual criticisms around him as a ball player, and the Roberto Mancini era, it seems like decades ago in comparison to the way Pep Guardiola plays football, despite the fact that Mancini's football was quite good. But as a defender, it seems like light years away. And for somebody like Vincent Kompany to make that transition and to prove himself despite all the injuries, and I guess despite some of his limitations as a ball player, you could say that Mangala, John Stones are better ball players than him. He still comes strong, and he's proved his fitness, and he's proved that he is one of the great modern defenders in the world.
I wouldn't say Mangala's a better ball player than Kompany, to be honest with you, but I would certainly say John Stones most definitely is. Yeah, probably Laporte is, even Otamendi I'd probably feel as well. But it just goes to show that you've got, when you look at Man City, when you're watching them, Otamendi, John Stones, and even Laporte, when I've seen Man City over the last few weeks, they're very quiet, they're not very vocal. When you watch Man City when Kompany's playing, he's organising the whole 11 when he's on the pitch. So that's the one thing that you're taking away from Man City straight away when Kompany's not in the side, his leadership, his ability to maybe sense danger and dictate to others that their own positional sense. That's, I would always feel worth its weight in gold. That's ultimately like that could be like an extra player on the pitch, or certainly an extra pair of eyes. He's almost like a coach on the pitch when he's playing. On the ball, I certainly would agree that he's not as good at stepping in. He's certainly not that player that's able to start attacks for City as maybe one or two of the other defenders are. But I think certainly from a positional point of view, his ability to read situations, his ability again to drive others on, I think he is still the best there within that side. But it is still that we'll always ask the question of him: can he play 30, 40 games continuously? And that's the one thing with his injury record, we'll probably always fall a little bit short now.
You don't buy into the idea that there was anything other than fitness questions around Kompany, no?
No, I don't think so at all. Why? What else? What have you heard?
The things that I've outlined there, that he potentially was a great Roberto Mancini defender, not a great Pep Guardiola defender. I've changed my view on that. I'll admit.
Okay, look, all I would say as well. One name, Carlos, not Carlos Puel. What's his name?
Thierry
Barcelona. No, the other lad at Barcelona.
Puyol.
Yeah, what's his first name?
Puyol.
Carlos Puyol. I was thinking of Puel. Anyway, yeah, no, but he was your one. He wasn't necessarily great on the ball, and he got the best out of his ability. And the talk was when Guardiola first took over at Barcelona, he hated his style. He was the sort of player that liked to put it in the stand, get his team reorganised, get set up, and he learnt and he developed under Guardiola. So he's exactly the same as that.
Fair enough.
What does Guardiola do though? Because they're heading into the quarterfinals of the Champions League, where they could end up playing Real Madrid, or they could end up playing one of the other leading Premier League teams. But if you can't trust that Kompany is going to be fit, so you could spend 2-3 weeks preparing a game plan for getting up against Barcelona or Real Madrid, and then 2 days before the game, he's ruled out injured and you have to start all over again, or do you just have to take that risk with him?
Do you know what, Nate? I think he's, the way I believe that he does work on the training ground, when he's working on team shape and on the development of his team, he's working with the whole 22 players. So it's basically dropping players in and out of the sessions as he's going along. So
he's not someone who has his 11 and that's it.
Yeah, it's right. Yeah, exactly. If he's got we all know. I mean, he's had to change his defenders. That's the way it's had to be with him anyway. He's changing the fullbacks continuously. So he's not necessarily got one set of 11 players with 3 or 4 different game plans. In general, his game plan tends to be the same, unless he's working on different intricacies within the system of the team that he's going to be playing against. In general, the centre halves from Man City will do exactly the same role, whichever one of those 4 players will be in the side. So I don't necessarily see that being a problem. They will all know the role, whichever they're asked to do.
Are we still doing what's inside Kevin's fridge?
There's no, we're not going downstairs in here. We're not back in Manchester today, so we can't be having that what's inside Kevin's fridge. Honestly, this is Barry Bant. We're not having a bit of Barry Bant today. Sorry about that.
We try our best to get to that level, but it seems like you're in emergency accommodation there, Kev.
Does it really?
There's a comment card over your shoulder.
Temporary accommodation.
Before we wrap up, it would be amiss of me not to get a quick Mayo gauge off the two of you while you're there. Obviously, disappointment last Saturday, but sure, it's only the league, lads. So I can confirm it is indeed only the league.
Kerry supporters, you've become a right pain in the hole. To put it mildly.
That hurts.
This nonsense that you've been coming out with, just because you go to a few games, because you're one of the 10 Kerry supporters who travels around the country, you suddenly think you can have a comment about everybody else and all the other supporters. And
I made no comment about the Mayo fans.
You don't worry about Mayo at all.
Whoa, you did make comments about the Mayo fans the other week.
Oh, I did the other week, but not this morning.
Pardon?
I didn't make any comments about them this morning. You know how much
last week you had a lot to say.
Say that again, sorry?
I said last week you had a lot to say, or the other week you had a lot to say.
Yeah. I've said my bit, Kev. I'm not going to go into it in any further detail.
Mayo were missing from 1 to 10 that started last year's All-Ireland final. Mayo were missing 9 of them last weekend against Dublin and still kept them to 4 points and missed quite a few opportunities. This is obviously, if it goes ahead, a big game against Kildare. Win it, Mayo probably safe. Lose it, suddenly the last couple of weeks are going to be a bit of stress and a bit of pressure on Stephen Rochford. And as we've touched on before, I think any pressure or stress he's under is just absolute nonsense.
Yeah.
From Mayo's point of view, it is the league. Chill out, everybody. Yeah. It'll be fine.
You share that view, Kev?
Correct. I echo those sentiments exactly the same. I feel exactly the same way, yeah.
Well, good stuff. Best of luck for the rest of the league. Hopefully you stay in Division 1. Sure, Division 1 will be nothing unless I can get into arguments with Mayo fans.
No, quite literally. Division 1 will be a lesser place without Mayo. I would say the average attendance would fall. I'd say it would be halved if Mayo weren't there.
So you're the best fans in the world.
Yes.
Okay. Each to their own. Kev, thank you very much. Stay safe out
Cheers,
there.
lad. All the best.
It's Kevin Kilbane there. So we must reiterate, City versus Chelsea and Brighton versus
No worries,
Arsenal.
cheers, Joel. Cheers, mate.
Currently slated to go ahead this weekend. They're live on Off the Ball on these. They're finally gone. Yeah, saying goodbye to the production staff out there. But it's good to see behind the curtain.
Still nice guy off camera as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's not kind of Ross Kemp on Extras, kind of where it's just a complete shift in personality, where he's like all nicey on air and then
one of those. Well, we have a few of them around here as well. But
a few of them. We won't name names. Waits for Nathan to name a name.
That's fine. That's fine.
As I say,
so are you sure Crow Park Saturday night?
Yeah, that's not going to happen. I don't. There is going to be no GA this weekend. I realise we probably.
Here's a bet for you. Do you think people will be at a GA ground this weekend, and the game will then be called off?
I doubt it. I think it'll be a blanket kind of calling off of games.
Okay.
That's the only thing that makes sense. But they said Friday, so you may or may not be waking up to news about these games being called off. Hopefully, that it should have been called off earlier in the week, all these games. But anyway, that's much of a muchness. Again, City, Chelsea, Brighton, Arsenal, live and off the ball this Sunday. Nathan, do you have any final thoughts?
No. Well done on.
Thank you. Enjoy Brighton.
You're not doing a baryometer?
No, I couldn't dare even try and venture in that direction.
All right, fair enough.
Thank you. As I say, safe flight. Hopefully you get some good action in Brighton.
You don't seem fully convinced by this at all.
I don't really know. It's like, it basically sounds a little bit like
I've been to Brighton twice already this season. I think they were the worst 2 matches I've covered so far this season.
0-0
was it a 1-1 against Southampton possibly? Yeah, they weren't great, whatever they were.
Right, okay.
I can't even remember, which is not a good sign.
We might get your take on that afterwards. Good luck in the mix zone, actually, this week. After your faux pas, well, not a faux pas, you just got...
faux pas? I'm standing there waiting.
Dissed by Jesse Lingard and Marcus Rashford, is it?
Yeah, top bants from those guys. I don't understand it. Jesse Lingard's just scored the winner. Be happy. Come out and have a chat.
Kind of like, what happened? They walked past you and then...
They walked past and then they literally had a fight so that neither of them would have to talk to me.
Was that just you standing there?
No, there was more people further down along.
Okay.
So it wasn't just me they were ignoring.
It would have been enough.
I was the first person in line, though. Yeah. So maybe it was me who put them off. Sure. No, Brighton will be fine. Chris Hughton's a very nice man. Shane Duffy might talk to us.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, the things that will be coming up on Monday morning.
Oh, can't wait. Absolutely can't wait. Safe flight. And that's where we're going to leave the football chat for this morning anyway. We're going to bring you some of our best bits now to bring you out the show. We're going to be back on Monday morning. Myself and Ger will be back in studio. Hopefully we'll have some sort of sport to talk about.
An 8-minute interview with Shane Duffy.
Yeah. Play the full thing. It's just a shot of you roaming in the press area after the game.
Followed by a 12-minute interview with Lewis Dunk.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as I say, stay safe out there. Have a great weekend. You can tweet us at Off The Ball with any thoughts you have about the non-sporting weekend that's coming up. We'll see you on Monday. But as I say, we're going to play you out with some of our best bits from the last couple of weeks.
Here, I got to ask you, besides